know some people in our lives that can use some guidance. People that, perhaps we have advice for them on how they could live a better, a more fulfilling, a more spiritual life. People that make, wouldn't say bad decisions perhaps, but should we say difficult decisions? And, perhaps they turn to us for advice and we try to give them good guidance. We try to help lead them in the right direction. We try to show them a good path. But, they don't really follow us necessarily. They don't always take our great advice that we have for them. They don't always take it and run with it. Whether it's our children, family, friends, acquaintances, different people that we meet up in life. And so the question is, then what? I care about someone. I love this person. I want them to make the right decisions. I want to help them succeed in life, whether it's a drug problem or whether it's, all the different things that people are dealing with. I see that they're going down the wrong path. I want to help them. And I'm telling them, I'm giving them all the advice and I'm showing them the proper path. And they're not listening. They're not taking my advice. They're not appreciating what I'm offering, and they're choosing a different path. At what point do I say, that's it, I tried? At what point do I say, listen, you're going to make your own choices in life. I've tried. I told you what I think. You don't want to hear my opinion anymore. So I give up. It's not my problem anymore. I did what I can. I did my best. What's the point that we can say, I'm done. I'm finished. I did what I can? So this is a difficult question. And it's something that is actually addressed in a discussion on this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion, we talk about the story of Noah. Noah, as we know, God came to Noah and he told him, he said, listen, your generation, the people living here, people living at this time are bad people. They're doing things that they're doing a lot of things that are inappropriate. And I've come to realize we need to do a refresh. We have to start over. I'm going to destroy the entire world. I'm going to save you and your family. I want you to go and build an ark and to save the animals. And we're going to start a clean slate, start all over with your family. So Noah was a righteous man, right? Noah was the tzaddik. He was the holy one. He was the one who was listening. He was the only good person alive at that time who God can rely on to be the beginning, the new start of the world. But when we look a little deeper into Noah, into the Talmudic discussions regarding Noah, we start to see a slightly different picture. We start to see that Noah is not quite as simple as we may have understood him until now. Maybe Noah was not such a great man after all. Maybe Noah had some problems too. We'll see a very interesting discussion in the Talmud. And through looking at this Talmudic debate regarding Noah, it will help us answer the question as well and understand how far do we need to go? At what point do we say, I tried, I did my best, it's time for me to move on in life? So let's jump right into the Talmudic discussion. And let's start by looking at the very first verse in this week's Torah portion, the portion of Noah, and see how the Torah introduces him. Now, to be clear, Noah was already introduced in the previous Torah portion. At the end of Bereshit, when Noah is born, the Torah says how Noah is born, and it talks a little bit about him. But now is when we really start to focus on Noah, and so the Torah tells us who Noah is. And it's a beautiful verse. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. Wow, what a beautiful verse. What a beautiful description. Noah was a tzaddik, he was righteous, perfect in his generations. Interestingly, if you look through the Torah, there's many righteous people in the Torah. Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, forefathers, Moshe Rabbeinu, Yoshua, Aaron, so many holy, special, righteous people. How many people does the Torah clearly state that they are a tzaddik? How many people does the Torah say that they were righteous? Anyone know the answer? The answer is one. Noach is the only one. The only one from all the righteous people in the Torah. None of them does the Torah say that they were righteous except for Noach. He is the only one that gets that title. So obviously Noach was a great man. But now we see an interesting discussion in the Talmud. Talmud says, hold on a second. There was a qualifier in that sentence. Let's read that verse again. These are the generations of Noach. Noach was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. Noach walked with God. Why do we say in his generation? Say Noach was perfect. Why does it say perfect in his generation? It's a qualifier. What are we coming to say here? Let's read between the lines here. What is the Torah telling us when the Torah puts in this extra word, saying in his generation? So the Talmud debates. Rabbi Yochanan says, in his generation he was righteous, but not relative to those of other generations. So Rabbi Yochanan says, yeah, he was righteous in his generation. Amongst all these lowlifes, he stuck out as a righteous man. He was someone that was a quality person. That's great. But if you would take Noach, pick him out and pluck him into another generation of good people, he's nothing special. You wouldn't see him as such a great holy man. He was only special amongst all the other people that he was with. Reish Lakish says, however, in his generation he was righteous. Even in such a generation of so many bad, evil people, in a place of such bad influences, a place where he dealt with the lowest of the low. All the more so would he have been in other generations. Here he was, in such a horrible place, being righteous. Imagine you took him out of that and put him into a place of righteous people, he would flourish even more. He'd be even greater, he'd be even holier, a better person. So they're each learning this word. Are you learning it as a quality, as something enhancement, saying, wow, Noach was so great, even in that generation, like Reish Lakish? Or do we look at it like Rabbi Yochanan and say, hey, he was righteous in that generation, but not compared to other generations of more righteous people? The Talmud continues. Rabbi Chanina said, there is a parable for Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. To what is this matter comparable? To a barrel of wine that was placed in a cellar where vinegar is stored. In its place, its fragrance is noticeable. When it's not in its place, its fragrance is not noticeable. The wine on its own does not have such a strong smell that you'll notice it in a place out in the open field. You wouldn't even appreciate it, you wouldn't even notice it. But when you're in a place of horrible smells, of strong vinegar smell, now you'll appreciate it. Rabbi Yoshaya says, there is a parable for Reish Lakish's opinion. To what is this matter comparable? To a flask of perfume that was placed in a location of filth. In its place, its fragrance is notable, and all the more so would it be in a location where there is perfume. So a perfume smells beautiful in a place, in a horrible place, a bad smelling place. You'd enjoy the fragrance. But take it out of there, it still smells beautiful. You still would enjoy the beautiful fragrance of the perfume. And in fact, you'll enjoy it more because you won't have these other negative smells there as well. So Rabbi Yochanan looks at it as a limiter. We are saying that Noach was righteous only in that generation. Reish Lakish, on the other hand, looks at it as, no, it's actually adding, it's actually something saying that even in his generation, he was still righteous. This is the debate in the Talmud. And on this, we have several questions. The first question is, Noach died thousands of years ago. Why are we sitting here now and analyzing and debating if Noach was a tzaddik or not? Is it really so important to pick this poor guy's life apart and talk about him now and decide if he was a good enough man or not? Let the poor guy, let him lie in peace. What do we want from him? The second question, Here we have two options. We can look at him positive or look at him negative. Don't you think it would be appropriate to try to find the positivity? What's wrong with Rabbi Yochanan? Why is he insisting on looking at him in a negative light? Reish Lakish is offering a beautiful positive idea, a beautiful positive explanation. Run with it. Why do we have to try to find negative about Noach? Why are we tearing him apart? What do we want from the guy? As a matter of fact, we know that there's a rule in the Torah, that the Torah will go to great lengths to avoid saying a negative word about anyone or anything. We always try to find a positive thing to say. When we talk about an animal, a not kosher animal, in fact, in the same Torah portion, we talk about the animals that are being brought on the ark. The Torah doesn't say an impure animal. The Torah says an animal that is not pure. Why does the Torah bring in extra words to say an animal that is not pure? Because we want to avoid labeling an animal as being impure. We don't want to say a negative word about an animal. That's an animal. Here we're talking about a person. And not just any person, the person who God chose to rebuild the entire world. The only person that the Torah clearly calls a tzaddik, a righteous person. And here we are trying to find negative about him. What's wrong? What's going on over here? There's a joke of a gangster, a Jewish gangster, who dies. So the brother, who was, with him in the same business, the brother comes to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, I need you to do a funeral for my brother, my dear brother. And I need you to give him a proper eulogy, and you have to say that he was a righteous man, he was a tzaddik. The rabbi says, listen, your brother, he was no righteous man. We all know who he was. We all know he was a gangster. He wasn't a good person. I'm not going to get up there and say that he was righteous. The man says, no, Rabbi, you have to say he was righteous. I'm writing you a check, $50,000. You have to get up there and say that my brother was a tzaddik. The rabbi thinks for a minute and says, okay, it's a deal. Takes the check, and sure enough, the next day, whatever it was, they have the funeral, and the rabbi gets up at the funeral and he says, this man, this deceased, you should know, he was a horrible person. He was a murderer. He was a thief. He made so much trouble for other people. He was a really bad person. But he looks at the brother. Compared to his brother, he was truly a tzaddik, a righteous man. So we always try to find a positive about another person. We always try to think positively. So the question is, why is Rabbi Yochanan finding a negative way of interpreting this idea about Noach? Interestingly, in addition to this debate that we find in the Talmud, we find another similar debate in the Zohar. The Zohar is a little bit more, it's a Kabbalistic work, it's a little more mystical, but in the Zohar we see also the same discussion between different people with a slightly different discussion, but the same idea. Once again, they are debating Noach. They're debating the values of Noach. And it talks about how when God came to Noach and he told Noach to go and build the ark, what did Noach do? God said, build an ark. What was Noach's response? He went and built the ark. Noach followed orders. He did what he was told to do. He did exactly what God told him to do. What did he not do? The Torah does not mention anywhere that Noach said, hey, God, what are you doing? He didn't stand up to God. He didn't pray for the Jewish people. When God told Moshe Rabbeinu, when he told Moses, after the sin of the golden calf, I am going to destroy the Jewish people and make a new nation out of you. How did Moshe respond? Moshe said, God, don't do that. Moshe said, God, if you're going to do that, if you're going to destroy the Jewish people, take me with them. I'm not interested in being part of something like this. Moshe stood up to God and he prayed for the people. We don't see this regarding Noach. We don't see Noach standing up for the people, standing up to God and saying, God, this is not right. Of course, we don't want to, I'm not making any comparisons here, chas v'shalom, but the idea of a Nazi soldier saying, I was following orders, I did what I was told to do, it's not my fault. We can't just say I did what I was told to do. We have to take responsibility. And so regarding this, there is a discussion in the Zohar. And it says as follows. Rabbi Yehuda said, come and see. When Moshe prayed to God, he didn't rely on his own merit, but rather on the merit of the forefathers. Noach, by contrast, didn't have anyone whose merit he could rely on like Moshe did. So Rabbi Yehuda says, this is not don't hold this on Noach. This is not a negative about Noach, that he didn't pray for the people like Moshe prayed. What was Moshe's prayer? Moshe's prayer to God was, God, save them on behalf of their forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, their holy forefathers who followed you, who did everything right. Save them in their merit. So Moshe, his prayer was, save the Jewish people because they have forefathers who had the merits to save them. Noach didn't have that. Who is Noach going to say? Noach's going to say, save them because of their forefathers. Their forefathers were sinners too. What merit do they have? Noach had nothing to say. It's not Noach's fault that they didn't have any merits in their background. Moshe had the forefathers to rely on. Noach didn't have that opportunity. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says, this is not a negative about Noach. But Rabbi Yitzchak responded, even so, once God told Noach, and I will establish my covenant with you, Noach should have pleaded for mercy on the people. Instead, he waited until after the flood to offer a sacrifice. He should have brought it earlier. Maybe it would have calmed God's anger and spared the world. So Rabbi Yehuda replied, the Zohar continues, Rabbi Yehuda replied, what could he have done? The people of the world were guilty and constantly provoked God. And Noach was afraid for himself. He didn't want to put his own life at risk by getting involved. He saw how corrupt they were, how they angered God every single day, and he didn't want to be caught in their downfall. So Noach, he did the best he could in his situation. It's not his fault. There's nothing that he could have done that would have been better. And so again, we have here two perspectives. We have Rabbi Yochanan, who is saying that Noach is not liable. Noach did his best. Noach did everything as best as he could do. And there's nothing negative to say about Noach. On the other hand, we have Rabbi Yitzchak who's coming and saying, he could have done better. He could have tried something. He could have prayed in some way and tried to make it a better situation. He didn't do that, and therefore it is on him. It is his responsibility. So once again, we have the same question. Why is Rabbi Yitzchak finding negative? Why can't he find the positive like Rabbi Yehuda? Why can't he also come along and say, listen, look at the positivity. It's not his fault. He didn't have any opportunity. Why does he have to point out the negative and say, but he could have done something else. He could have tried something. So we know there's a saying, a humorous, but also a true saying that people say about Jewish people. We say 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Because we like to argue about everything. Everything is an argument. It's never a straightforward answer. It's always, you say yes, I say no. There's always something to argue about. But when we look a little deeper, in the Talmud, we have tremendous amount of arguments. There's arguments about every subject, really, in the Talmud. Yet, even though there are plenty of arguments, we always, in Talmudic discussions, we always try to find ways to actually remove the arguments, to say that, you know what, they're not really arguing. It's not really an argument because really, it's not that one is right and one is wrong. It's a different perspective. They're looking at it from a different perspective. They're talking about a different case. They're talking about a different situation. And really, they don't argue and they both agree with each other, just they're talking about 2 different things. This is a concept that we try to apply in general as much as we can in Talmudic study to show how the rabbis really are not arguing and to try to alleviate these arguments in the Torah discussions. And so we have the same thing here. The Rebbe comes along and says you should know that in this discussion here between Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Yehuda, the truth is they're not really arguing. It's not really an argument. In fact, they agree with each other. They actually do agree. They both, if you ask Rabbi Yitzchak, was Noach responsible for not praying for the Jewish people? Rabbi Yitzchak will tell you, like Rabbi Yehuda, the truth is, Noach did not do anything wrong. Noach is not responsible. If you ask Rabbi Yehuda, if a person is going and studying the story of Noach, and they are looking for ways to emulate the ways of Noach, they're looking for lessons they should take in their own life. Is there a lesson that they should take about Noach? Should they do the same thing as Noach and emulate him in the same way? Rabbi Yehuda would say, no, that's not appropriate. Don't emulate Noach, because you should pray for another person. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda is looking at Noach himself as a person and saying, Noach, was he right or was he wrong? Did Noach do something wrong, or did Noach do everything he could do? And for that, the answer is Noach did nothing wrong. Noach was a good man. Rabbi Yitzchak, on the other hand, is coming along and is asking a different question. Rabbi Yitzchak says that when we look at the Torah for ways to emulate our heroes in the Torah, we look at the Torah and we try to find ways how we should behave in our own lives. And so when we try to look at Noach and try to find ways to emulate Noach, you should know, hey, don't follow Noach, because there's a better way to do it. Don't follow Noach, because you should actually pray for another person and not accept it as a fait accompli that you can't do anything about it. Why? Because Noach in his situation couldn't do anything. Noach, in fact, was in a situation where there was nothing that he can do for the people. But you're not in that same situation. You are not Noach. You are not living in the time of Noach. What was true about Noach is not true about you. So if you are going to take a lesson from Noach and say, I'm not Noach, I'm like Noach, I follow orders, I do what I'm told to do, and I don't take responsibility for other people, we say no. Don't be like Noach, because you have an opportunity to pray for another person. You have the opportunity to step it up and be there for Noach as much as he needs it. You have the opportunity to be there for another person and to stand up to save another person and not give up on them. The same thing applies to discussion between Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish says that Noach was a tzaddik even in his generation, because Rish Lakish is looking at Noach as he is as a person. Noach as a person is a person who lived in a difficult situation. He lived in a generation of sinners. Noach didn't have an opportunity. There was nothing he could do to help those people. But Rabbi Yochanan says no. If you are Noach, if you are living in a place where you have the opportunity to pray for another person, don't be Noach. Don't say, what can I do about it? Because you could do something about it. And because you could, you need to step up and you need to do something about it. So Rabbi Yochanan is looking at you and saying the Noach inside of you. You're Noach. That's not a good enough to say that you're a tzaddik. To say, I did my part, that's not good enough. You need to step it up and you need to do better. And so Rabbi Yitzchak is giving us all a message, he's giving us all a warning, to know that we have to make sure to never give up on another person. We need to do whatever we can. We always have to be there for another person. We always have to be ready to help another person, no matter how far gone they seem to be. No matter how much it seems there's nothing else I can do, we still have to be there. We still have to continue to help this other person. There's an interesting thing we see in the Talmud. The Talmud says regarding a host, someone's a guest in someone else's home. So the Talmud says the guest should always follow the instructions from the host. You're in his house. He tells you to do something, you do it. He tells you not to put your feet on the table. You don't put your feet on the table, right? You be a mensch. You follow what the host tells you to do. It's his house. You follow his rules. My house, my rules, right? But the Talmud says there is one exception to this. There is one thing that if the host tells you to do it, you don't have to listen. You should not listen to the host when he tells you this. What is this one rule you don't listen to the host? When the host tells you it's time for you to go, the host tells you get out of my house, don't listen. Stay in his house because he's doing a mitzvah, and you should continue to be there and continue to appease him. But don't just leave the house because he told you to leave. The Rebbe takes this teaching from the Talmud, and the Rebbe says, let's look at this in a deeper way, in a more of an allegorical way. The host is not just a human host that you're staying in his house. The host is referring to God himself. The guest is us. We are guests in this world. God is our host. He is taking care of us. Whatever God tells us to do, we got to listen. He's the host. You got to follow your host's instructions. He tells you to do something, you got to do it. You got to behave, be a mensch. Except for one thing. If the host tells you to leave, then you don't leave. You don't listen to him. So when God Almighty tells you, leave me alone, go away, stop praying for this person. Ah, the video's back. Stop praying for this other person. Stop trying to help this person. He's not in a good place. He's not someone that we want to be helping right now. Move on. As God told Moshe. He told Moshe, leave me, go down, go away. Stop praying for them. What was Moshe's response? To start praying. Because the host tells you to go away, you don't listen. You have to stay there. You have to continue praying and pushing and doing whatever you can to help another person. So practically speaking, what can I do? The guy is not listening. I've given him advice. I told him that he's ruining his life. I told him that this is the wrong path he's going down, and he has to fix his ways, and he has to do better. And he's not listening. He doesn't want to hear. I'm a nudge. I'm getting to the point where I'm a nudge. What should I do? The answer is, tell him that you love him. Tell him that you care. Let him know that you're there for him. Let him know that when he's ready to talk, you're there. You don't have to be the nudge, but you can still be there in their life as a positive force in their life. Don't abandon them just because they're not listening to you. Still be there for another person as a place of strength, a place of support in any way that you can be. There's many ways that we can be there, and when they're ready, they know where to find you if they feel you've been there the whole time and you've shown that love and support no matter what. This is one tool that we have. But the other tool is prayer. As we're saying about Noah. Noah could have prayed about for the people. Again, we're not talking about the actual Noah like we said. We're talking about the Noah within us. The Noah within us can still pray for another person. You see somebody struggling. You see that they're not ready to hear your advice. They're not ready to go down the right path. Go pray for them. Talk to God and say, God, this guy needs help. Pray that this guy should find the right way, the right path in life. Pray for him to go down the right path. It says in the Talmud regarding Rabbi Meir, one of the great teacher, the great Tana, the great sage, Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir had some neighbors who were not exactly of high society. There were some lowlifes in his neighborhood, some hooligans, that they were causing him a lot of problems. They were causing a lot of trouble in his life, and he had enough. And he says, God, get rid of them. Get them out of here. Get them out of here. They're just causing problems. I prayed for them to die. But when his wife, Rabbi Meir's wife, was known as a very wise woman. Her name was Bruria. When Rabbi Meir's wife, Bruria, heard her husband's prayer, she stopped him and said, no, that's not appropriate. We don't pray for the sinners to cease. We pray for the sins to cease. Don't pray that they should die, that they should no longer be here. Pray for them to return to God and to stop sinning. Pray for them to be good people. That's the best way of helping them, of taking care of the situation. But there's a problem with this. Ultimately, people have free will. People have to make their own choices in life. People have to, as much as we try to be there for somebody, ultimately, it's their life, and they're going to choose the way that they want to live, and that's the way it should be. Every person should make their own choices. So how can I pray for someone else that they should make the right choices? Isn't that taking away their free will? Am I not praying to God to change their will, to put them in a place where they're going to choose something else? I'm praying to change their will. How does that work? I'm taking their life in my hands. And so this is a question that was answered by the great Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was a great American rabbi who lived in New York from 1937 to 1986. He was a very well-respected rabbi, and he answered this question in a very interesting way. Why does a person make bad decisions in life? A person makes bad decisions because they have negative influences. There's things that are influencing them in a bad way, in the wrong direction. There's things that are pulling them in the wrong way. So when you pray for them, you're praying to remove those influences. Whether those influences be external influences, things that are outside, things that are pushing them one way or another, or whether it's internal influences, whether it's things that are inside. We're praying for them to have clarity, for them to have the sensitivity to make the right decisions. I'm not saying that they should choose right. I'm praying to God, take away those things that are pulling them in the other direction, and then by default they're going to choose the right thing. People are good. People do want to do the right thing. People don't want to lead a path that goes down the wrong direction. But there's things that pull them, whether external or internal, there's things leading them down the wrong path. And so I pray to God, remove those obstacles that are pushing them in the wrong direction. And then the Rabbi Moshe takes it a step further. And he says, we're also praying that God should give them good people in their life that will give them good influence. I'm praying to God that God should bring good people into his life that they should be able to lead him in the right direction. And so this is the prayer. This is how we pray for another person and try to help them when they are taking the wrong path in life, when they're taking their life in the wrong direction. But going back to our original question, concluding with the way we were asked the question in the beginning. The question that we started off with is, at what point do I give up on another guy? At what point do I say, I've tried, I've done the best I can. I tried to explain to him 1,000,000 times. And I told him that he's making the wrong choices. And I told him he's ruining his life. And I told him that things are not going to go well. And I told him, and he's not listening. At what point do I say enough? I'm going to stop being the nudge. And I'm going to move on in my life. And he can ruin his own life because it's his own life and it's his problem. And I'm going to live my life. I'm going to do what I have to do. He'll do what he does. That's life. We all make decisions. At what point do we give up and say that? The answer is we don't. There is no line. There is no line that we cross that line and say, now I'm done. We don't ever give up on another person. If something doesn't work, we do something else. And so if I'm not able to give him advice like that, if he's no longer a receptive to hearing my advice, then stop giving advice, but I can still be there for him. I can still show love and care and respect, and I can still pray to God that he should be led in the right direction, that he should lose the negative influences that are pulling him away, that he should have positive influences and good people in his life that are going to bring him in a good direction. And that, there's no line, there's no end to that. I have to keep going and make sure the Noach inside of me never says that I did not have an opportunity, because the Noach inside of you always does have something. You always have something to lean on. You always have a way to help another person. So never give up on another person. Always be there for them. Always find place in your heart to love them and care for them, and find a way to lead them in a path, a constructive path that will lead them in a good way in life, that will help them as they move forward and build a good life for themselves and those around them. And this is the lesson that we learn from Noach. And again, Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Yochanan were not chas v'shalom saying negative about Noach. Going back to what we said in the beginning, we said that Noach perhaps is a little more complicated, not so great. We go back and we say, no, Noach was a great man. Noach was a tzaddik. Noach did whatever he can. But you don't be like Noach, because you can do more. You step it up. You do your best. You be there for the person, and you help them till the very end, and that will bring them to live a life of fulfillment, a life of goodness, and a life of blessings for those around you. Thank you very much for joining. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, or comments?
Well, I was wondering, when we talk about Noah,
Mhm.
was he a Jewish person, or
Great
did
question.
Jews only started after Abraham?
That's a great question. Noach, it says that the first Jew was Abraham, right?
Right.
Um, but what about people before him, like Noach, Shem, Noach's son, Adam, right? There were a lot of good people before that. Where did they fall in? So the answer is that they obviously they were good people and they were connected to God and they spoke to God. How many of us can say God had a conversation with them? An open, clear God speaks to all of us, but we don't always hear it in the same way. We don't feel it the same way. We don't have a conversation with God like Noah had. Noah had a very close personal relationship almost with God. And yet we still say that Noah was not a Jew. Why was Noah not a Jew? What was the difference between Noah and Abraham? Noah didn't discover God. God came to Noah and spoke to him and said, Noah, go and build an ark. Abraham, on the other hand, God only spoke to him after Abraham first discovered God on his own. Abraham discovered God, and Abraham implemented changes in his life. And not just in his own life, but he went and he taught others. And he spread the gospel. Don't want to use that word, but he spread the good word about the great God and how people should pray to one God and not have idol worship. And he made the world a better place before he ever had a revelation. And he put his life on the line multiple times. And when Abraham was thrown into the fiery furnace, God never spoke to him at that point. And so, because it was through his own self-discovery, that's the beginning of Judaism,
Wow.
right? So, it's very important to note, being Jewish is not a requirement to be a good person. There are millions of great people in this world that are not Jewish, and that's perfectly fine, which is why we don't try necessarily to convert people to Judaism, because it's not our goal to make people Jewish. We want people to be good people. We want people to recognize God and to follow the seven Noahide laws, which are called that because Noah wasn't Jewish. Um, to follow the seven Noahide laws, which apply to all mankind, and to be good people, and that's enough. You don't have to be Jewish to be good. Noah was a good man, as we say. He was a holy man, but he wasn't necessarily Jewish.
Hmm. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining, and look forward to seeing you all next week.